So let's go through the review practical activity from the AS new syllabus, chapter 10. So shopping center would like to monitor inspections that are carried out at the food outlets. So different inspections are given and it is in a paper-based format, and they need to create a database and forms to do all of this, monitor all the inspections. So create a database that can be used by the shopping center to monitor these inspections. 3 files have been given. Normalize the data to the third normal form by removing redundant data. So we have to look out for data in these 3 files that are redundant and replacing it with appropriate foreign keys and adding any primary keys that are needed. So we need to check whether primary keys are available in all 3 files. And if not, we need to add them, create foreign keys in order to do the relationship, and mainly look for redundant data. So since the data is given as a txt file, opening this data into an Excel file will help us to analyze the data better. So we will just go into the data tab and get the data. So 3 text files have been given, so we will take those 3 text files. So let's open up the outlet. Okay, so let me load the data. This is already comma separated. So I have 4 records totally. Okay, so let's take a look. Outlet code has been given to us. That would be the primary key, the name, the floor, location, telephone number, annual fee, and the opening date. So there is no redundant data over here, and no non-atomic data also, and also the outlet code, we can make it as the primary key. So we will save this file and move on to importing the next file. In the same way, I have now imported the other 2 files, inspection types and inspection visits. So we need to take a look at both the files and see if there is any redundant data. Now over here, we can see that we have 3 fields over here, and specifically we need to look for whether this field, whether we can make a primary key in this table. So here we do have a field that can be made as a primary key, but ideally it is advisable to, since the data is less, yes, we can make this as a primary key. And we can take a look at the inspection visits. We do have the same field over here, so we can make this as a foreign key and continue with the linking. Since the data is less, it is possible to do that. Nevertheless, they have told us to remove any redundant data and add the necessary primary keys. So what we would be doing here is to add a primary key to this table and replace in the inspection visits, we would replace the inspection name, which would be a redundant data, with the primary key from the inspection type. So that would reduce the amount of space that this data is taking as compared to a single or a auto number value. So in order to do that, we can first go ahead and add an auto number over here. So I can create it either in the beginning. Okay, so I will insert a column over here and call it as inspection ID. And we can give an auto number. It's only 4 fields. Alright, now we will replace it over here by removing this field and replacing it with an ID. So I can do that over here by using the lookup function. So if I'm going to use a VLOOKUP, I would need to ensure that this inspection ID that I have added should come towards this side, so that the first so that the lookup value will be found in the first column. Now from Office 2019 onwards, we do have another function known as XLOOKUP. So I would be using that to look up my value, and my lookup array, similar to a lookup function itself, but it's more powerful. This would be my array, and my return array, I would need the inspection ID for each of the values that are given here. So I have received the inspection ID. So I can replicate this, rename it as a inspection ID. So this would be my foreign key, and I can delete off this redundant column. Now before I delete, since these are formulas, I'm just going to copy them and paste them over here as values. So in the exam, you would either need to save this file in an Excel format and then proceed to saving it with values and saving it as a CSV, or you would have to take the necessary screenshots and place it in the evidence document for proof of the formulas that you have taken in order to prepare the files for your database. So here I would paste special as values. I can go for paste special as values, or the option is given there. So now my formulas have been removed, and I will delete off this particular column and save my files as CSV files and move ahead to importing the files into the database and ensuring the right data types have been given. Here the 3 tables have been imported with the right data types, and we can set the currency also. If they have mentioned any particular currency, you can set it, otherwise set it to the general currency with 2 decimal places. Usually they give that at the beginning of the question. Date and time also, set the format to be DDMMY if they have not specified any specific format. And I also have the inspection type table created, an inspection visit in which we had created the lookup for linking these 2 tables. Now instead of doing the formula in Excel, you can also import this table and create a new field, and then instead of having it come from Excel, you can also create a lookup wizard and link this to the inspection ID field over here. So then the relationship will get created automatically. So the relationship has also been created, and according to the question, we have enforced referential integrity also. Question 3 has asked us to create a query. So it should be a calculated field that will show the penalty incurred if an inspection has failed. So we will go to the query wizard and we will take out the 2 tables which will show the penalties that have incurred for each visit. So we will move to this part and let's go towards the inspection. We will name this as penalties incurred. And let's modify the query wizard. So here I need to create a calculated field that will display this penalty only if the inspection has failed. So these are the cases where the inspection has failed. So for the rest of them, the penalty incurred should show me a 0 or a blank. So I need to create a calculated field. So I will begin with my query builder, and here I will create a calculated field. I will use the if function, and I need to check in my expression. So I will just start with the expression. So if my penalty, so I will come back to my values. So if this is equal to a yes, then I need to display a 0. Otherwise, I need to display penalty points. So in my false part, I will mention the penalty points. Otherwise, the penalty incurred should be 0. And I will put the name as penalty incurred. That's my query. And I've run this query, so wherever there is penalty incurred, only those penalty points have been displayed, the rest have been shown as a 0. So let's move on now. So we need to create an extra data entry screen, a form that will look similar to what is given above. It will allow the data entry about outlets, their inspections, and it should include a subform and show the penalty if one was incurred. You also need to have a drop-down menu that can be used to select the inspection type of the subform and a calculation on the form to calculate the total penalty due. So it will be calculated as £100 multiplied by total penalty points. And you also create a inspection, or you create a button in order to print the inspection data entry screen. So these are all the form controls that we would require. So we will use the form wizard to create this form. So I've created the form. I've selected all the outlet data from the outlet table and the inspection details from the query that we just created. And it gives me a subform. So my outlet code and all the outlet details as the main form and my inspection details as the subform. So for each outlet, how many inspections have occurred. So this is an easy way to create a form and a subform. You can also go ahead and create 2 forms and then open up the main form and drag and drop the subform into the main form. So I will create this particular form and move on to the data validations that they have mentioned. So here they've asked to replace the inspection type, that is the inspection name, with a drop down. So I'll just remove this off and move towards creating a combo box for this inspection. Take a combo box and replace the inspection name as a drop down, and go into my wizard, and I think my wizard needs to be activated, and let's just create this again. So that's my drop down that I've created, and I've linked the control source from the property sheet to inspection name in case your wizard doesn't open up, and I've created the appropriate label. And next they have asked us to calculate a form calculation to add up the total penalty due. So it would be calculated as £100 multiplied by the total penalty points. So we will come back here and we would be able to create a calculated field inside this where we would add up the total penalties for a particular outlet and multiply it by 100. So let's create a text box in order to create the calculated control. So they have mentioned that the total penalty points would be the sum of the penalty points multiplied by 100 marks or 100 euros. So penalty incurred, and I would multiply it by 100 euros. And you change the property sheet, go into your property sheet and modify it to your euros and change it to 2 decimal places. And I have also included a button over here in order to print the data entry form. Okay, now the question has also asked me to create validation rules that will prevent invalid data from being entered in the following scenarios. So there should be only 4 floors. So floor should be anything from 0 to 4. So here the floor has been set the validation rule between 0 and 4. So then let's take a look at the rest of the validations that they have asked for. So if I take a look at the opening date, so it should be after the any date that you enter here should be after the opening date. So the opening date they have mentioned, that is from this month in November up to 3 months from the opening date. So any date that can be entered in opening date should be from the starting date up to 3 months. So beyond that we should not, or less than that, no data should be added, or no date should be added. So it's mentioned 3 months from the opening date you add it. So that is the validation for the opening date. Then if I take a look at the annual fee, okay, penalty percentage. So in here I need to give, this is in the main form. In the main form and I'm calculating a penalty percentage. So what is the formula here? In my inspection visits subform. So that is the data that is coming from here. So if I take a look at this one, if I select this value, okay, this subform is what is being mentioned over here. And this text box value, which I have named, if I take a look at the property sheet, I have given a name as total penalty points to that control. So over here, when you are making this subform, we also need to ensure that when we are making this form using form wizard, we also need to ensure that we select the view as tabular and not as data sheet. Then only this total penalty points can be displayed. So that is what is being displayed as penalty percentage. So if I go back to my property sheet, so it is inspection visit subform. That is the name of the subform that you can see. That is, this subform's name is inspection visit subform. Dot form, an exclamation mark, we are taking the name of this control that we have added for total penalty points, multiplied by 3%. That is the formula for penalty percentage. Then penalty fee is this value divided by 100 into annual fee. And the total fee is this annual fee that you can see here, plus the penalty fee. Now one more condition that we have, or one more work that we have done over here. This is a part of, not a part of this review activity, but a part of the questions that have been asked in this chapter. So here we have displayed a tick box for renewal letter. So whether this outlet is due for renewal. So if it is due for renewal, and if a renewal letter has been sent, then I don't need to do anything. So if this checkbox is true, I don't need to do anything. If this checkbox is not true, I need to, so I have written this formula out inside a text box. So it will display the content, or it will display the text accordingly. So if it is, if the renewal letter is not checked, then what is it going to do? It will check the date difference in months between the opening date and today's date. So if it is greater than or equal to 10 months, then I need to display the text that this outlet is due for renewal shortly, and you need to write to the outlet. So if it is not greater than or less or equal to 10, then you will display that the renewal is not yet due. So let's now move on to the rest of the task that they have mentioned. Okay, now let's move on to question number 6. Produce a query to show the number of inspections that have passed between this date and this date for each type of inspection. So I have created a query over here. So it's a summary query. So inspection name, the inspection ID, pass where the criteria is true, and inspection date where the date is between these two dates. So that would be the query that we would create to find out how many inspections have passed. So this is the kind of answer. So how many inspections have passed, or the inspection name and count of the inspections that have passed. So that is a query that they have asked us. Next, produce a query showing a list of the outlet codes for any outlets that have failed any 2 inspections. So that also, let us go and take a look at the query that has been created. So again, this is a summary query. So I have taken the outlet code and you're counting the number of inspection visits, okay, that have passed, which have not passed, and that count we had seen how many have at least received, or the ones where the inspections have failed twice at least. Okay, so that has been mentioned over here, right? So that would be the query for this question. Now we need to create a graph that will show the inspection names on the x-axis, number of passes on the y-axis, using an appropriate title and clearly labeled axis. So one method in which you can do this kind of a graph would be this would be the query for it, the ones that have passed inspections. So you can, this one, okay, you can export this particular query into an Excel sheet and easily create the graph. In case they have specified to use or make the graph in your in database itself, so then what we do is we go ahead and create a report. Okay, so I would use report wizard and I will create my query, select this query and create a simple report. Okay, past inspections. Let's modify this report design. So once I'm here, and I'll just remove this part and reduce the size of my space, and I would now go into my the report design, and here under modern chart I will insert a chart, and let's draw that chart over here. And I'm going to take the data out from where? From the query. So I've already created the query. This is the name of the query. So on my x-axis I have the inspection name, and on the y-axis I have the count. So that has been displayed here. Now what you have to do is you have to rename, or you have to change the title in the chart. Okay, whatever has been mentioned over here, you can go here and change the name of the chart to a meaningful name. Okay, number of past inspections. Okay, inspections. Right, so that can be done, and you can remove off any legend if you don't want. You can remove off that. Okay, and save off this chart. Okay, so I think we need to check this. Okay, all right, so that would be your chart. We just need to rename the chart size. Let's take a look at the report view and see how it looks like. Okay, so I formatted this a little bit by changing the legend to the inspection name. This is how it was looking. So I just changed that to the inspection name, and then you right click and go into your properties. Over here we had changed the name of this entire chart. We'll go into all and change the chart title. Okay, number of past inspections, and your chart category axis, that is the x-axis to inspection type, and the primary axis to number of past inspections. Any other changes that you need, you can make it the modification from here. So this will be our chart, and we will save this report. And now let's move to the next one. So the next part is to create a report that will show all the failed inspections grouped by the type of inspection, and it should include name of each outlet, agency, and the date. So for this I have to create a query. So in my query I will select all the inspection type and the outlet name, what is the name of the agency, and the inspection date. So I will create a query for this. So I think the failed inspection is the, let's take a look at this query. Okay, so I have created a simple query from the query wizard. Inspection name, I've taken the agency, the date, the outlet code, the name, and here I have modified it. So all the inspections that have failed. So we want to report on that. So let's run this on the datasheet view. So this is our report. So this, once your query is done, we will create the report. Create a normal report. So we will just go to the report wizard, select our query, wherein we have taken all the data, and they have asked us to group the data. So the grouping is going to be by the inspection name. Let's just take a look. Group the data by the type of inspection. So that's been done. And then after that you can go ahead and since the data is not much, they have not specified whether it's a portrait or a landscape, but you can select it as a portrait because the amount of data that we have is less. So we can finish off this report. So this is our report on the outlets that failed inspections grouped by the inspection name, or the type of inspection. Now we also need to create a menu that would open up the following items, and it will include also an option to exit the application. So the outlet, data entry screen, inspection passes, and inspection failure report. So here I will just create a simple menu. So I would go back to my create a blank form and go into my form design view, and you create a simple menu. You can give a title using the labels. Here I will just start with the buttons. So we need a button that will open up this particular form. So a form that will open up this particular form, and this is the form that I want to open up. So I want the form to open to show all the records, and let's give the name of the form as open outlet inspection data entry form, or you can leave it like this. So this I will call it as a form. Then we need, this we can say as a data entry. Okay, right, and let's make another button. Now this time the button is for the graph. So you can create the report operation in order to preview the report, and the report is going to be the past inspections graph. Okay, so I think this one or this one, both. The last one we did was this report. So I can go into this report. It's a graph, so past inspections graph, and okay, I will leave it this way. And once more, let's create one more button that would open up the next report. Again, it's a report operation to preview the report, and that is going to be the outlets that failed inspection. So outlets that failed, outlets that failed, okay, inspections, and leave that. And the last button would be the button to exit the form, and that's it, our menu is done. So click over here, form operations, and close the form. That's finished. That's our form. And that's the review activity. That's it.